Sometimes a single moment on television can reveal a truth so powerful that it changes everything. Sometimes a game show answer isn't just an answer. It's a window into someone's soul, a glimpse of struggles we never imagined, and a reminder that behind every contestant standing under those bright lights is a real person with a real story. If you love stories that remind us why compassion matters and why we should never judge someone until we know their whole story, hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring content that will restore your faith in humanity. The Tuesday afternoon taping of Family Feud started like any other. The studio audience was energetic, Steve Harvey was in his element with his signature humor and quick wit, and two families stood ready to compete for the $20,000 prize. The Morrison family from Ohio faced off against the Chen family from California. Both families had brought their A game, both were filled with laughter and competitive spirit, and both believed they had what it took to win. But nobody in that studio, not the producers who had interviewed these families, not the audience members who had come for an afternoon of entertainment, and certainly not Steve Harvey himself, was prepared for what 17-year-old Marcus Morrison was about to reveal in the final seconds of the show. The Morrison family had fought hard to get to fast money. Marcus stood at the podium with his Aunt Jennifer, a woman in her early 40s who had raised him for the past 3 years. They needed just 48 points to win the $20,000. Jennifer had gone first, scoring an impressive 152 points. Marcus just needed to avoid completely bombing the questions, and the money was theirs. It should have been a moment of excitement and joy. But as Marcus stood under those lights, his hands gripping the podium, Steve Harvey noticed something different about this teenager. There was a weight in his eyes, a maturity that seemed beyond his 17 years, and a quiet determination that spoke of someone who had lived through things most kids his age couldn't imagine. Steve approached the podium with his characteristic energy, ready to put Marcus at ease with some humor before the questions began. "All right, young man," Steve said, his voice warm and encouraging. "You ready to bring this home for your family?" Marcus nodded, but his usual smile seemed strained. "You only need 48 points. Your Aunt Jennifer killed it. Just stay calm. Say the first thing that comes to mind, and y'all are going to be eating good tonight." Marcus managed a small smile. "We could use it, Mr. Harvey. We really could use it." There was something in the way he said it that made Steve pause. It wasn't the typical contestant excitement about winning money. It was something deeper, more urgent. The Morrison family had come to Family Feud through a community organization that helped at-risk youth. Marcus had been recommended by his school counselor, who thought the experience might give him and his Aunt Jennifer something positive to focus on during what had been an incredibly difficult year. The producers had done the standard background interview, learning that Marcus lived with his aunt after his mother had passed away, that he was a good student despite his circumstances, that he played basketball and dreamed of going to college. But they didn't know the full story. They didn't know about the nights Marcus stayed up worrying about bills. They didn't know about the part-time job he worked after school to help his aunt make ends meet. They didn't know about the scholarship applications he filled out in secret, afraid to hope too much. They didn't know that this $20,000 represented more than just prize money to this family. It represented survival. Steve tried to lighten the mood. "So Marcus, your aunt tells me you're quite the basketball player." "Yeah," Marcus said quietly. "I play point guard for my high school team." "That's great. That's great," Steve encouraged. "You got colleges looking at you." Marcus hesitated. "I hope so, sir. I'm working on it." Steve sensed there was more to the story but decided to focus on the game. "All right, let's do this. 20 seconds on the clock. You ready?" Marcus took a deep breath and nodded. His Aunt Jennifer, standing with the rest of the Morrison family on the side of the stage, clasped her hands together in prayer. The other family members held their breath. "Here we go, Marcus," Steve announced as the clock appeared on the screen. "First question. Name something people do when they first wake up in the morning." Without hesitation, Marcus answered, "Check their phone." Steve nodded approvingly. "That's a good answer, that's a good answer." Survey said. The board revealed that it was the number 2 answer with 31 points. The audience applauded. Marcus was off to a solid start. Second question, Steve continued. "Name a reason someone might skip breakfast." Marcus answered quickly, "Running late for work." "Good, good," Steve said. Survey said. Number 3 answer, 23 points. The audience cheered louder. Marcus was doing well, staying calm under pressure. He now had 54 points total, which meant his family already had 206 points combined, well over the 200 needed to win. But the questions continued as part of the format. Third question, Steve read, "Name something a parent teaches their child." Marcus's voice was steady. Right from wrong, the audience murmured in approval. Survey said. Number 1 answer, 36 points. 90 total now for Marcus. The Morrison family on the sidelines was jumping up and down. They'd already won, but Marcus had 2 questions left. Fourth question, Steve said, "Name something people save money for." Marcus paused for just a fraction of a second before answering college. His voice caught slightly on the word. "Good answer," Steve said, though he noticed the emotion flicker across Marcus's face. Survey said. Number 2 answer, 28 points, 118 points for Marcus, 270 total for the family. Then came the 5th and final question. Steve looked at Marcus, who had begun to show signs of the pressure he'd been holding inside. The teenager's hands were gripping the podium tighter now, his jaw clenched, his eyes fighting back something that looked like tears. Marcus, Steve said gently, one more question, we're done. You've already won, young man. You did great. Just one more. Marcus nodded, unable to speak. Steve read the final question. Name something you wish you could tell someone who's no longer in your life. The studio fell silent. It was a more serious question than the others, one of those Survey Feud questions designed to tug at emotions. Marcus stood frozen at the podium. The seconds ticked by. 5 seconds. 10 seconds. The audience waited. Steve waited. Marcus's Aunt Jennifer felt her heart breaking as she watched her nephew struggle with the question. She knew exactly who Marcus was thinking about. She knew the weight he carried every single day. 15 seconds. Marcus, Steve prompted gently. Just say the first thing that comes to mind. Marcus's voice, when it finally came, was barely above a whisper, but the microphone picked it up. The studio was so quiet that everyone heard it clearly. I'm sorry I couldn't save you. The words hung in the air like a physical thing. Steve's expression changed instantly. The audience went completely silent. Marcus's Aunt Jennifer began crying. The other Morrison family members gathered around her. All of them knowing exactly what Marcus was talking about, all of them feeling the weight of those words. Steve Harvey, a man who had hosted thousands of episodes of Family Feud, who had heard countless answers and witnessed every kind of emotion, stood absolutely still. He looked at Marcus, really looked at him, and saw a 17-year-old boy carrying a burden that no child should ever have to carry. Marcus, Steve said softly, his voice thick with emotion. What did you say? Marcus looked up, tears now streaming down his face. I said, I'm sorry I couldn't save you. That's what I wish I could tell my mom, that I'm sorry I couldn't save her. The studio erupted in a different kind of noise now, not applause, but the sound of hundreds of people gasping, crying, reaching for tissues. Steve stood frozen, the cards in his hand forgotten. The producers in the control room were scrambling, uncertain whether to cut to commercial or let this moment play out. They decided to keep rolling. This was real. This was important. This needed to be witnessed. Steve walked over to Marcus and placed a hand on the young man's shoulder. Son, he said, his own voice breaking. Talk to me. What happened? Marcus wiped his eyes with the back of his hand, trying to compose himself, but the dam had broken. 3 years ago, Marcus began, his voice shaking. My mom got diagnosed with cancer, stage 4 breast cancer. The doctors said she had maybe 6 months. We didn't have a lot of money. We didn't have good insurance. But Mom, she fought so hard. The audience was completely silent now, hanging on every word. I was 14, Marcus continued. I didn't really understand what was happening at first. I just knew Mom was sick and we were always at the hospital. My Aunt Jennifer, she moved in with us to help take care of Mom because I was too young to do it alone and Mom couldn't work anymore. Marcus looked over at his aunt, who was openly sobbing now. Aunt Jen gave up her whole life to take care of us. She left her job, her apartment, everything. Steve's eyes were glistening with tears. What happened? Marcus, Mom lived for 2 years instead of 6 months, Marcus said. The doctor said it was because she was a fighter and because she had so much to live for. She wanted to see me graduate high school. She wanted to see me go to college. She had all these dreams for me. Marcus's voice broke again. But the treatments cost so much money. Even with the little bit of insurance we had, the bills were huge. Aunt Jennifer used all her savings. We had fundraisers at church. People helped as much as they could. But it wasn't enough. Tell me about your mom, Marcus, Steve said gently. She was amazing, Marcus said, a small smile breaking through his tears. She worked 2 jobs before she got sick just to make sure I had everything I needed. She never complained. She always said that being my mom was her greatest blessing. When she got sick, even when she was in so much pain, she would still ask about my day, help me with my homework, come to my basketball games when she had the strength. She never wanted me to worry about her. She wanted me to just be a kid. The night she died, Marcus continued, his voice barely audible now. I was holding her hand. She could barely talk anymore, but she looked at me and whispered, take care of your Aunt Jennifer. Live your dreams. Make me proud. And then she asked me to promise her something. What did she ask you to promise? Steve asked, tears now rolling down his own cheeks. She asked me to promise that I wouldn't blame myself, that I would remember she lived every extra day for me, and that was enough. That loving me was enough. Marcus broke down completely, his shoulders shaking with sobs. But I do blame myself, Mr. Harvey, every single day. Because after she died, I found out the truth. Aunt Jennifer told me Mom had stopped taking her treatments 6 months before she died. What? Steve said, shocked. Why would she do that? Because we couldn't afford them anymore, Marcus said, and Mom didn't want us to lose our house. She didn't want me to have to drop out of school and get a job. She didn't want Aunt Jennifer to use the last of her retirement money. So Mom just stopped the treatments and told everyone she was still going. She'd go to the hospital for check-ups, but not for the chemotherapy. She chose to die sooner so that we wouldn't end up on the street. The entire studio was in tears now. Crew members, audience members, the Chen family who had been competing against them, everyone. Steve Harvey, known for his composure and ability to handle any situation with humor and grace, was openly weeping. He pulled Marcus into a tight hug. That 17-year-old boy who had been holding it together for 3 years, trying to be strong for his aunt, keeping his pain hidden so he could focus on school and basketball and just surviving, finally let himself break down in the arms of a man he'd never met before, but who somehow understood his pain. After a long moment, Steve pulled back and looked Marcus in the eyes. "Listen to me, son. Listen to me very carefully. What your mama did, that wasn't because you weren't enough. That was because you were everything. You understand me. You were so important to her, so precious to her, that she made an impossible choice to try to give you a future. That wasn't your fault. That was love. That was a mother's love." Marcus nodded, unable to speak. "And you know what else?" Steve continued. "She didn't die because you couldn't save her. She lived 2 years longer than doctors said she would because you gave her a reason to fight. You were her reason, Marcus. You were why she held on." Steve turned to address the cameras directly. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're not just playing a game here anymore. We're witnessing something real. This young man, 17 years old, has been carrying this weight for 3 years, thinking he should have done more, thinking he should have saved her. But the truth is, he gave his mother the greatest gift any child can give a parent. He gave her joy. He gave her a reason to fight for every single extra day she got." Steve looked back at Marcus. "Your mama is proud of you, son. I promise you that. She's looking down right now and she is so proud." Steve wiped his eyes and seemed to make a decision. "You know what? We're going to do something different today. Marcus, your family won this game fair and square. You're getting that $20,000. The audience erupted in applause, but Steve held up his hand. "But I'm not done. Marcus, what would you do with more money? What do you need?" Marcus looked confused. "Sir, if you had more resources, what would help you and your aunt?" Marcus glanced at his Aunt Jennifer, then back at Steve. "Honestly, Mr. Harvey, we're behind on our mortgage, like really behind. The bank sent us a notice last month. We have 60 days to catch up on payments or they're going to foreclose. Aunt Jen has been working 2 jobs and I work after school, but it's not enough. And I've been accepted to 3 colleges, but I can't go because we can't afford it, and I can't leave Aunt Jen alone with all these bills. How much do you need to save the house?" Steve asked. Marcus looked at his aunt again. "About $35,000, Marcus said quietly. "We're that far behind." Steve nodded slowly. "And college, what would that cost?" "The school I really want to go to offered me a partial scholarship, but I'd still need about $20,000 a year for 4 years. Marcus's voice was barely a whisper. "But it's okay. I can go to community college and work. I can still help Aunt Jen. It's okay." Steve Harvey looked at the producers in the control booth, then at the audience, then back at Marcus. "It's not okay, Marcus. It's not okay that a kid as smart and hardworking and good as you has to give up his dreams because the world isn't fair. It's not okay that your aunt, who gave up everything to take care of her sister and raise her nephew, is working herself to death trying to keep a roof over your heads. It's not okay that your mother had to choose between medical treatment and keeping her son in school. None of that is okay." Steve pulled out his phone right there on stage. "I'm going to make some calls. I have a foundation. I have friends who have foundations. We're going to save your house, Marcus. We're going to make sure your aunt doesn't lose her home. And we're going to make sure you can go to the college you want to go to." The audience leaped to their feet, applauding and cheering. Marcus stood there in shock, unable to process what was happening. "That's not a promise I make lightly," Steve said. "I mean it. We're going to help you. But more than that," Steve continued, "I want everyone watching this show to understand something. There are thousands of kids like Marcus out there, kids carrying burdens we can't see, kids who lost parents and are trying to be strong, kids working jobs when they should be playing basketball and going to dances and just being kids. Kids who smile during the day but cry themselves to sleep at night. We walk past them every day and we have no idea what they're going through." Marcus's Aunt Jennifer was brought onto the stage. Steve hugged her tightly. "Mom," he said, "you are a hero. You gave up your life to raise your nephew. You honored your sister's memory by making sure her son had a home and love and stability. You are what family is supposed to be." Jennifer could barely speak through her tears. "He's my whole world, Mr. Harvey. He's all I have left of my sister. I would do anything for him." "I know you would," Steve said. "And now, you're not going to have to do it alone." The rest of the Morrison family joined them on stage, all of them crying, all of them embracing. The Chen family, who had been competing against them, walked over and hugged them too. One of the Chen family members said, "We're so sorry for everything you've been through. You deserve this win and so much more." The studio had transformed from a game show set into a sanctuary of shared humanity where strangers connected through empathy and tears. Steve addressed the cameras one more time. "I've been doing this show for years. I've seen a lot of families. I've heard a lot of answers. But today, Marcus taught me something. He taught all of us something. When we asked him what he wished he could tell someone who's no longer in his life, he said, 'I'm sorry I couldn't save you.' That answer broke my heart, but it also opened my eyes. How many people are walking around carrying that kind of guilt? How many kids think they should have done more, been more, saved someone they loved? How many people never ask for help because they think they should be able to handle everything alone? Steve looked directly into the camera. If you're watching this and you're carrying guilt about someone you lost, I need you to hear me. You did enough, you were enough, your love was enough, and if you're struggling, if you're working 3 jobs to keep your head above water, if you're a kid trying to be strong for your family, if you're drowning in medical bills or mortgage payments, or just trying to survive, please know this, you are not alone. There are people who care. There are organizations that can help. There are communities that will rally around you if you just let them know you need support. The episode of Family Feud that aired 6 weeks later became the most watched episode in the show's history. The clip of Marcus's answer and the revelation that followed went viral, reaching over 200 million views across all platforms within the first month. News outlets picked up the story. Marcus and Jennifer were invited onto talk shows. But more importantly, the response from viewers was overwhelming. Steve Harvey's foundation received over $3 million in donations within the first week, all designated to help families facing similar struggles. The foundation created a new program called Marcus's Promise, dedicated to helping families dealing with medical debt and supporting students who had lost parents. Colleges across the country reached out to Marcus offering full scholarships. He ultimately chose to attend Duke University on a full ride, with additional money for living expenses so his aunt wouldn't have to support him financially. The Morrison family's mortgage was paid off completely, and Jennifer was able to cut back to 1 job. She started volunteering with a cancer support organization, helping other families navigate the impossible choices they faced. Marcus became a spokesperson for childhood grief and economic hardship, sharing his story at schools and conferences, always emphasizing the same message his mother had given him. You are enough, your love is enough. 2 years after that episode aired, Marcus returned to Family Feud for a special follow-up episode. He was now a 19-year-old college sophomore studying psychology with plans to become a counselor for at-risk youth. He walked onto that same stage where he had broken down, but this time he stood tall, confident, healed. Steve Harvey greeted him with a huge hug. "Look at you," Steve said, beaming with pride. "College man, basketball player, public speaker. Your mama would be so proud." Marcus smiled, and this time it reached his eyes. "I think she would be, Mr. Harvey, and I think she'd be grateful to you for everything you did for us." Marcus shared that he had started a foundation of his own with some of the speaking fees he'd received. It was called Save You Foundation, named after the answer that had changed his life. The foundation's mission was simple: to provide financial assistance and counseling support to teenagers who had lost parents and were struggling to survive while pursuing their education. "We received over 5,000 applications in our first year," Marcus told Steve. "There are so many kids out there living the life I lived, scared, alone, trying to be strong when they're breaking inside. Our foundation has helped 300 families so far. It's not enough, but it's a start." Steve shared that the Marcus's Promise program through his foundation had helped over 2,000 families pay off medical debt and keep their homes. They had provided college scholarships to 150 students who had lost parents. The ripple effect of that one moment, that one answer, that one revelation of truth had created waves of change that touched countless lives. "But you know what the most amazing thing is," Steve said. "It's not the money we raised, it's not the families we helped, as important as that is. It's that Marcus taught us all to see each other differently, to ask questions, to care about the stories behind the smiles, to understand that everyone we meet is fighting battles we know nothing about." Marcus nodded. "That's what my mom would have wanted. She always said that her cancer was horrible, but if it taught people to be kinder to each other, then maybe some good could come from it. She believed that our struggles could help other people if we were brave enough to share them." I wasn't brave that day on Family Feud. I just broke. But somehow breaking open was exactly what needed to happen. Steve smiled. "Sometimes our breaking points become our breakthrough points. You broke open and love poured out. Not just your love for your mama, but love from millions of people who saw themselves in your story. People who had been carrying guilt just like you. People who had been struggling in silence just like your family. You gave them permission to speak their truth too." The special episode included testimonials from families who had been helped by the Marcus's Promise program and the Save You Foundation. There was a single father who had been drowning in his late wife's medical bills until the program paid them off and gave him breathing room to grieve and heal. There was a 16-year-old girl who had lost both parents in a car accident and was living with her elderly grandmother, working full-time at a fast food restaurant to help pay bills, until the foundation provided financial support that allowed her to quit her job and focus on school. She was now applying to colleges with hope instead of resignation. There was a family of 5 kids being raised by their oldest sister, who was only 23 after their parents died from COVID-19. The foundation had helped them avoid foreclosure and provided counseling for all the children. Each story was a testament to the power of one moment of vulnerability, one answer that revealed a heartbreaking truth, one person courageous enough to let the world see their pain. Marcus watched the testimonials with tears in his eyes. "This is why we do it," he said. "This is why we share our stories. Because somewhere out there, someone is going through exactly what we went through. And they need to know they're not alone. They need to know that asking for help isn't weakness. They need to know that survival isn't just about making it through each day. It's about thriving, healing, and then reaching back to help the next person." Steve Harvey, reflecting on that original episode and everything that came from it, shared his own revelation. "I've been blessed in my life. I've had success. I've made money. I've achieved things I never dreamed possible when I was a kid. But that day with Marcus, that moment when he said he was sorry he couldn't save his mother, that changed me. It reminded me why we have platforms, why we have voices, why we have resources. It's not just for ourselves. It's to lift others up. It's to shine a light on struggles that people want to keep hidden. It's to create change." The episode ended with Marcus and Steve standing together on the Family Feud stage, surrounded by dozens of families who had been helped by both foundations. Steve issued a challenge to everyone watching: find your Marcus. Find the person in your life who's struggling in silence, the coworker who always seems tired, the student who's withdrawn, the neighbor who stopped taking care of their lawn, the friend who says they're fine but their eyes tell a different story. See them. Really see them. Ask them how they're really doing. And then listen. Really listen. Because sometimes all people need is to know that someone cares enough to ask. Marcus added his own message. And if you're the one struggling, if you're carrying guilt like I was, if you're working yourself to death trying to survive, if you think you have to be strong all the time, please hear this. It's okay to break. It's okay to cry. It's okay to say you need help. That moment when I broke down on this stage was the scariest moment of my life, but it was also the moment that saved me, because I stopped pretending to be okay when I wasn't. I stopped carrying that guilt alone. I let people in, and that made all the difference. The final words on screen were simple. In memory of all the parents who made impossible choices to protect their children, your love was enough. You were enough. The Save You Foundation and the Marcus's Promise program continued to grow, helping thousands of families each year. Marcus graduated from Duke with honors and went on to get his master's degree in counseling. He now works with teenagers who have experienced loss, and he speaks at schools across the country about grief, guilt, resilience, and hope. His aunt Jennifer wrote a book about their journey called Love is Enough, which became a bestseller and helped even more families feel less alone in their struggles. Steve Harvey keeps a photo in his office from that day, Marcus at the podium, tears streaming down his face. The moment before everything changed. He looks at it whenever he needs to remember what really matters, whenever he feels disconnected from his purpose, whenever he forgets that television at its best isn't just entertainment, it's connection, it's truth, it's transformation. Every year on the anniversary of that episode, Steve and Marcus do a joint fundraiser for both foundations. They tell the story again, not because people have forgotten, but because new people need to hear it. New families are struggling. New kids are carrying impossible burdens. New people need to know they're not alone. The legacy of that one answer, "I'm sorry I couldn't save you," extends far beyond the money raised or the families helped. It changed the conversation about childhood grief. It brought attention to the impossible choices families face when dealing with medical debt. It sparked policy discussions about healthcare costs and the gaps in insurance coverage. It inspired other celebrities to use their platforms to help families in crisis. It created a culture of asking and caring and seeing beyond the surface. And most importantly, it reminded millions of people that they are not alone in their struggles, that asking for help is brave, not weak, and that sometimes our breaking points can become our breakthrough moments if we're courageous enough to share our truth. If this story touched your heart, if Marcus's courage inspired you, if you believe in the power of vulnerability and community and love, please hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. Share this story with someone who needs to hear it today. Leave a comment telling us about a time you asked for help or a time you helped someone who was struggling. Let's create a community where no one has to suffer in silence, where it's okay to not be okay, where we see each other's pain and respond with compassion instead of judgment. The world needs more people willing to be vulnerable like Marcus. The world needs more people willing to help like Steve Harvey and everyone who donated to these foundations. The world needs more people like you, willing to see the struggles behind the smiles and offer a hand to those who are drowning. Thank you for watching, for caring, for being part of this community of hope. Together, we can make sure that no one has to carry their burdens alone. Together, we can be the answer to someone's prayer. Together, we can save each other.